Hello, my friends. Welcome to today's Momentum Boost. I'm your host, Adrienne Gold Davis, and I'm so delighted that you're joining me today. So, to ask our guests a question, you just click that question mark in the lower left hand side of the chat box. So, in these extremely divisive, angry times, our discourse has been ugly and fractured. What used to be seen only on the battlegrounds of a family breakdown has spread to all manner of conversation around everything news related, politically related, globally related, and who better, actually, than a trained divorce and family mediator to help us navigate this kind of divisiveness? Trained and practiced in the art of mediation between disparate points of view, a mediator is often the only thing between all out war and peace. On today's Boost, we're going to be exploring how we can develop mutual respect and healthier communication with the people we love, even when we don't agree with them, because respect is not afforded only to someone when you agree with them. True respect has to transcend differences. It's a tough one, but joining us today is divorce and family mediator and collaborative coach, Jody Comins. Jody's also the author of Speaking Out, Voices of Adult Children of Divorce. Please help me in welcoming Jody.
Hi, Adrienne. Nice to see you.
Oh, Jody, we need you so badly. In fact, the brainstorm to bring a mediator, someone as who excels as much as you do, I thought was, personally a really smart thing to do. And even though we know you can't fix all the problems of the world, Jody, we'd like you to try. No, even if you can't fix all of them, can you just share some of the basic principles around mediation? Why is it that mediation succeeds so often where therapy and that sort of stuff doesn't? What are the principles and why are you here?
Right. So thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And the thing about mediation, different from therapy, is that someone like me isn't necessarily getting into the emotion of an issue. It's more figuring out how to problem solve something together.
Aha.
So, and I can give you an example about like a basic tenet of mediation is moving people from their position to their interest. So when we argue with somebody,
Oh,
we
can you
get
just say
really,
that again? Say that
yeah,
again. Repeat that line.
moving from position to interest.
Huh.
When we argue with somebody, we're stuck in a position. And I gave you this example when we first chatted that, I often have couples who are fighting over something as simple as a couch, right? And, husband, wife, gay, straight, whatever. One partner says, the couch is mine. I'm keeping the couch. And the other partner says, no, the couch is mine. I'm keeping the couch. And so it's important to ask the question, why? Why is the couch important to you, partner B, and to hear the answers for each of them, to hear the answer. So maybe spouse A or partner A says, well, the couch is really important to me because we bought it for our wedding with a gift certificate from my great aunt Alice, and Alice has been gone for many years, and you know how much I loved her. And the other spouse says, well, the couch is really important to me because I sit on that couch and I read to our children and we snuggle. And, so I need to have the couch. So by hearing each other's interest, not the position that they must have the couch, we have an understanding of what each other is looking for, and maybe we can find some compromise. So Aunt Alice has been gone for a long time, but our children are still here, and I get that. So I'll acquiesce. You take the couch. I'll take the dining room table.
This is mind-boggling to me that you actually are taking the emotion out, and we're so addicted to emotion these days, and looking towards the purpose. It brings people obviously to their higher level without them even realizing that they're going there. It's fascinating. Now, this is not just about families or divorces or marriage. It has nothing to do with that exclusively. This
Right.
art of mediation happens in all aspects of our lives, with our children, with our family of origin, in our work and so on. But I'm sure there are certain trigger phrases. There are certain things that you must see as a mediator that make, like red flag to the bull. So maybe you can tell us a bit about that and give us some alternative phrases so that when things are blowing up, we can kind of bring it back down.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right.
So I think one of the most triggering things for people is when they hear the words, you made me, or you did this to me, you made me feel a certain way, it immediately puts the other person on the defensive. Well, what do you mean I made you feel that way? And we move into fight or flight, which then we're reacting from, here instead, and here. And so the idea of using I statements is much more productive in these kinds of relationships. And I'll share just a brief story that many people might have heard. A family goes on a trip and they're going in the lake for the first time, and wife is so excited because she hasn't spent time with her husband in warm weather. And they get in the water and the kids are playing over there, and she thinks they're going to swim and laugh and play together. And husband doesn't pay her any attention. And so her mind goes to, oh, he thinks I look ugly in my bathing suit. I haven't lost my baby fat yet. He's not attracted to me anymore. Any of the things that women might feel in that circumstance, having nothing to do with what's really happening, but it's our own self-confidence. They get out of the water, and she thinks carefully about how to present it to him. And she knows from her training that if she says to him, you made me feel ugly, that he's going to feel defensive. So she uses her I statement, and she says, I was really looking forward to being in the water together, and I felt I didn't feel connected with you, and I felt like there was something wrong. And was it me? Did something happen? Did I say something? And he said, I'm so sorry that you felt that way. But I had a dream last night that our kids drowned in the lake, and I couldn't take my eyes off them the entire time we were in the water. So she immediately understood that it had nothing to do with her. And the conversation went in a very beautiful and productive way. Terrible dream. The kids were fine. But she didn't lead with, you made me feel this way.
Okay, so this is a basic principle of communication that we've talked about a lot. But what happens when a couple's I statement is met with defensiveness too? What do you do as a mediator when you find yourself, they're doing it the right way, and yet there's no breakthrough?
Right. So my job as a mediator is an interpreter. I say that a lot because when we have years of history in a relationship with anybody in our lives, a friend, a parent, a sibling, doesn't matter. We don't just hear the words. We hear the 52 years of history behind those words, or the 10 years, or whatever it is. I spent time with friends recently, and they got so defensive with each other, and I just heard their words, but they heard their history. And so, I was on Ruchi's Torah class this morning, Ruchi being another momentum teacher. And she talked about, when somebody gets angry at you and we want to respond. And I guess that, the idea of not getting angry and being able to hold back from being angry and displaying your anger is actually a great attribute. And so, for me, if I'm sitting in a space with two people, my role is to interpret and to say, when John said such and such, I know you heard it with some background and history, but let's just listen to the words that he actually said. What were the words? There are exercises you can do with a person where you say something and they have to repeat it back to you, and you go back and forth until they get it exactly right.
Well, show me what that looks like. Show me. Can you try it on?
So if I said to you, Adrienne, I just love your glasses. They're round and they flatter your face. You would say back,
well, thank you. Oh, you mean I'm supposed to repeat
what
you
you repeat
said?
Exactly what I said.
Adrienne, I just love your glasses. They're round and they flatter your face.
Right. So you and I don't have any complicated history. You could hear a compliment very straightforward and you say it.
Oh, I see.
Add in layers of like, oh, well, usually, that person might think my face looks fat or whatever. I'm making things up right now. But you know what I mean? The idea that we don't hear what is said, and then arguments can get into the semantics of what was actually said. But I said this, and you heard that.
Oh my gosh, that's totally
and you heard that. We hear everything through our own individual lens, our own life, our own, self-confidence issues.
So do you think that often the trigger words are just an excuse to impose what's been going on under the surface, like the base of the iceberg? Do you think that we're dying to get like our rage out? What are some of the other triggers that as a mediator that you see when you're dealing with this?
So I don't know if it's an excuse to get our rage out, because I hope, and maybe we can go to the first slide. So Adrienne asked me to put some principles together so these are principles for intimate relationships, and then we'll talk afterwards or at some point during this time about social media. So let's go back to the first one. So
Okay.
when you talk about triggers, it's not just about triggers. I say that, and if we're talking about a couple right now, and it could be a sister relationship, it could be a friend relationship. My two biggest principles in my marriage are to always try to be kind. Always try to be kind. And to expect that whatever my husband says to me is coming from a place of kindness. Because if it's not, then it goes to the second principle of being teammates, right? If you're
Yeah.
married to somebody, I hope that you're on the same team. And I think earlier on when I was younger, I didn't always understand that or know that. And maybe my husband told me to turn, don't forget to turn left, or there's somebody in your way. And I know, I'm driving, I'm the driver, I'm in charge. Don't tell me what's going on. And how many people argue? Raise the hands, I can't see you, but how many people argue with your spouse when you're driving? My husband likes to drive. I don't. And so I let it all go. I don't care if he wants to turn left here or left there. It doesn't matter. He can be in control of that because he's driving and I'll do whatever I'm doing. And so the idea of being teammates, and I'm not a big athlete or anything else, but it's sort of like a shortstop backing up second base, right? The shortstop job, as soon as the batter hits the ball, is to go behind second base and back him up. So isn't that, or wouldn't you hope that would be true in your relationship, is that you are always there to back your spouse up or your partner or your whatever?
You would, but let's just say you are a couple of friends, a couple of siblings, a couple in a relationship, and you're trying to be teammates, but one's playing chess and one's playing checkers on the same board.
Right. Well, that brings you to number 3. Ask for what you need. Right? So when the pandemic hit and we all moved into quarantine,
Right.
every day I was asking my husband and our one daughter who was home with us, how are you? Like, how are you today? And I realized that no one was asking me how I was, right? You have to check in with your strong friends. And so I said to Mike, my husband, listen, I know that you don't always think of this, but can you ask me how I am? And he said, yeah, of course. And every day he asked me, how are you? And one of my friends, she was on our Momentum trip last year, she said, Mike is so good. When you ask him to do something, he follows up. So I know not everybody does that, but asking for what you need is the first step to getting what you need. Because if I sit in my car, I sit in my car and the garage open and nobody came out to help me, and then I grump my way in and say, why didn't you come help me? You know what he says? Why didn't you ask me? Of course I'll come help you.
Oh my gosh, I had
this
this conversation.
I needed you to know and intuit that I needed help. Ask
Oh
for
my
what you need.
gosh, that's what it is. I had this conversation with a girlfriend last night. She said, I don't like to ask. You don't like to, you like to be asked. Okay. So what does set boundaries has to do with it?
Okay. Well, setting boundaries has to do with a little bit about why you asked me to speak today, and that we're all living in the middle of a pandemic. There's crazy stuff happening all over the world.
Right.
And there are people disagreeing on all sides. And I know we're not getting political, but that is a place that people disagree. And so setting boundaries around where and when you can talk about certain things, I think is really important. It's like setting the same boundary of for me, this is an important one, no phones at the table. And no phones at the table was before cell phones were a part of our everyday, every minute life. I'm actually sitting in my dining room right now. My house phone is right over there. If the house phone rang during dinner, pre-cell phones, we didn't answer it unless it rang twice in a row, because then you knew somebody needed you, right? But there are no cell phones at the table. So we set boundaries in our life all the time. We can set boundaries around conversation killers. And Adrienne, you wrote a Facebook post yesterday, so I know it's okay to share this, that your husband likes to listen to a news station that you don't like. And so a boundary that you've talked about is that he could listen with a headphone. Because if he listened with a headphone, then you don't have to hear it, and it keeps you from getting upset, and it keeps you from colliding into a disagreement with your husband, who I know you love dearly.
I do. But, this takes us to respect. One of the things I've been struggling with lately is, and what I'm hearing from people saying to me all the time is, how do you respect someone who disagrees so profoundly with you, especially around issues that have to do with ethics or morality? I would imagine as a family mediator that you'll see this example in different areas, not just political, but one believes that public school is the way to go, and they think ethically that morally it's the right way, whereas the other parent says no, you spend your money on the best possible private education, and various other things from religion to like being vegan or not. what happens what if the other person won't respect the boundaries that you want to set?
Well, then you might end up in my office.
Right.
Joking aside, I think there's a difference between marriage mediation, in-law mediation, divorce mediation. So in divorce, each parent parents how they want to parent in their own home. And you really have no control over what's happening in the other house. That's different from the question you're asking, which is when you live together and you love somebody, or it's your sibling or your parent or something. How do you keep that respect? And I think that goes back to the position versus interest. What's your interest and what's their interest? Ask somebody, why do you believe in such and such? And actually really listen. Empty your brain, right? It's called listening for listening. So just listen to what that other person's saying without thinking about how you're going to respond. And it's really hard to do. When I do workshops on communication, we practice this. We sit together one-to-one, and I tell you something, and you can, oh, interesting, but you cannot respond until a minute's over. So try that with the person that you're disagreeing with on the topic you're disagreeing with. Because by the way, bringing up past issues and grudges and things, somebody once told me, she was a speaker, and she said, holding a grudge is like taking poison and hoping someone else will die.
That was me. I said that.
It was Elda Dorothy from Minneapolis, but you might have said it too.
Oh, never mind. All right.
It's one of those expressions, but you're right. You're absolutely right. It doesn't work to hold that grudge. And so again, getting to the why, and you might not agree with the person, and politics, religion, other things, you might never agree. But if you have a relationship with somebody, hopefully you respect them, and digging down to why they believe that. I have a friend who I don't understand her politics based on who she is and her sexuality and other things. And I love and respect her as a person. And so, we agree to disagree. Agree to disagree. Like, you have your thing and I have my thing. And the boundaries go to, like, let's not talk about these things when we're together. Or if we're going to talk about it, you have the boundaries around how to talk about it.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. I'm just getting a lot of people writing to me and saying, a person's position that differs from mine on this is my moral line in the sand, and I have to remove them from my life. And I think as a mediator, that enmeshment and cutoff are exactly the same thing. It's just the flip side of the coin, right? So we all need to learn these. Someone just wrote in, can you speak to forgiveness versus trust? Do women ever truly forgive? Whoa. Forgiveness versus trust. Yeah, what do you think of that?
I feel like somebody asked that on your Facebook page yesterday. Forgiveness versus trust. Yeah. They're two different things. I mean, there's forgiveness comes because somebody's hurt you and wounded you, and can you forgive them? I mean, there are people who have lost people to violence and other things, and they are these amazing people that they forgive the perpetrator. I think forgiveness and trust are two very separate things. So trust has to be earned. Trust has to be earned. And if someone breaks your trust, I guess they have to earn it back. And you have to figure out how that happens. It's interesting. Those are two very different things.
You just said something fascinating to me, and it just sort of triggered a thought in my mind. You said, trust has to be earned. Forgiveness actually is something that you give. It's an outpouring of generosity that has nothing to do with whether it's deserved or not. Because if something is only an incident for forgiveness, if it was unforgivable, right? Otherwise, It's just clarity that you're getting, whereas trust has to be earned. So you can forgive somebody and still not trust them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And do you see that a lot in your work?
Again, I work primarily in the divorce realm. So there's a lot of mistrust, unfortunately. My hope is that people come to mediation because they want to nurture their relationship, even like nurture their divorce relationship, which might sound like an oxymoron, but like a relationship in any other in your life, particularly if you have kids, you need to continue to co-parent forever. I think some of my parents, I have 3, are on this call, and they had to work together at certain times in my life to make sure that they were raising me and my siblings to be good citizens of the world. And, whether they liked each other or didn't like each other at various times, depended on the year. But the idea for me is that I want those kids, whoever my clients' kids are, to grow up and have not feel the divisiveness that kids can feel when their parents are divorced. Because listen, 50% of the population of America anyway gets divorced. So there are many, many children being raised in that environment, and the better those relationships, the less conflict in those relationships, the better. So sorry, I went on a little side.
No. I think I think it was really valuable. You also say here number 7, and I want to get to your.
Oh, number 7. Okay. So number 7, expect the best. And this you might have said, or Ruchi or Neely. The idea, though, that if we're on the same team and you feel hurt by something that somebody did, let's expect the best. And the example that was given was your child has 2 apples and you say, oh, Elsa, can I have an apple? And she quickly bites one and then bites the other. It's like licking it, right? And you think, oh my God, I raised such a little jerk. Like, why would she wants them both for her own? And then she hands you an apple and says, Mommy, I bit them both because I wanted you to have the better one.
That was definitely me.
I give you full credit. And if Ruchi and Neil are here, they can claim it too. But expect the best. So when somebody says something that's hurtful, unpack it and ask them, did you really mean it? My husband said something the other day that he said it as a joke, but I said to him later, you know, when you make that joke, that really hurts my feelings because it was like the opposite of that. So joke about these parts of it, but that particular one just hit too close because it was so untrue. And it was him just trying to be funny. And we do say things sometimes in front of other people to get a laugh. And so trying not to fight in front of the other people, number 1. And number 2, asking the person later, like, what did you mean by that? Unpack it.
That's brilliant advice. Let's go to your next slide. Let's do it.
Okay. So this one is interesting. And, you know, many of us, and I think there are 200 people on this call, are on Facebook and on Twitter. And I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not on Twitter. My kids are 18 and 21, and they live their life by social media. And my kids are big Zionists, big supporters of Israel, and they will get into it online. So we talked about this, Adrienne and I came up with some principles, and then I asked my 21-year-old Talia, I said, what do you do when you get into it with someone on Facebook? So the 5, 6, and 7 are hers. So number 1, no mudslinging. When somebody's on your page and you don't agree, if you're on their page or your page, don't mudsling. Like, there's no reason to send negative stuff out into the world. You can disagree, but don't be mean. And I'm amazed, I'm sure we all are, by the things that people say online, hiding behind their little icon of a person, you know, like their little picture or not, right? So no mudslinging, number 1. Number 2, agree to disagree. And this is just a favorite term in my life because I learned a long time ago that I didn't have to be right. Although I thought I did. And that might be just a young person's thing, but it actually doesn't matter. I don't care if I'm right all the time. And that's a hard one, right? People want to be right. And within this day and age, we might pull out our phone. My daughter does this, and my husband, they'll disagree about something music. And he's older, he's the dad, and he'll say, well, this is Trombone Shorty. And she'll say, no, it wasn't, it was whoever. And she'll look it up and she'll be right. And so like there's satisfaction in it. But if we don't agree, like that's a fact, you can find out the fact. If we don't agree on something, nobody's right. You can't be right.
Oof, this is so heavy. This is so deep what you're saying, Jody. My gosh. Okay, keep going.
All right, setting boundaries is similar. Like, there is nothing wrong with hiding people. You can block people on Facebook. You can hide them. Don't look at their thing. If it's going to set you off and make you angry, that's not cutting them out of your life. That's self-care. That's being kind to yourself. We talked about being kind to others, but let's remember to be kind to ourselves also, right? Okay, this one came from Talia. Separating your values from the leader's poor examples and tone. Not to get political, but we do have leaders who like to tweet things that we may or may not agree with. And so that trickles down to 21-year-olds. And then it feels okay to lash out at people by tweet, by this, by that, because everybody's doing it. But as a mom, you know, how many times did we say to our kids, well, would you jump off a bridge just because Johnny jumped off a bridge?
You too, right? Huh?
Yeah. Oh, my mom said it to me. I said it to my kids, right? This one I just strongly believe in. If we were in a room together, COVID or not, would you actually say the things that you wrote on Adrienne's page to John Doe that you don't even know? Would you say that out loud to that person and not expect to get punched in the face? Right?
Oh my gosh, this is such a good list.
So if you wouldn't say it to someone in person, don't write it on the interwebs, as I like to call it. Okay, and then these came from Talia. Don't add extra hate, right? Don't see, okay, so John Goldberg wrote under Adrienne's page to whoever, like, well, why are you such a jerk? And then I went and looked at Tony's page and I found out that Tony is, I don't know what, like, he rides a motorcycle and he has tattoos. And then I come back to your page and I'm like, well, Tony, if you didn't ride a motorcycle and have tattoos, you wouldn't be such a blankety blankety blank.
Oh my God.
Because his motorcycle and his tattoos have nothing to do with the discourse or the disagreement. So you can disagree. You can disagree on Facebook, disagree all you want, but do it respectfully.
Wow.
And that goes back to the don't make it personal. Like don't add extra hate and don't make it personal, I think are tied together, because don't Facebook stalk somebody to find out a way to go back to mudslinging at them. Negativity.
You're so right. Somebody just wrote into us, you can write real feelings on the internet, but then after venting, hit delete. Is it really deleted? I don't understand the question.
Say it again.
If you write your real feelings on the internet, but then after you vent, you hit delete, is it really deleted? Did you really delete it? I don't understand the question, but I wonder, is she asking psychologically whether the damage was already done by the actual writing of it? Is this like that whole idea that you write a letter to somebody you hate and then you burn it? And then I don't understand it. I just,
a couple thoughts on that. Oh, here. Thanks, Tal. So Rabbi Mark Baker, he's one of my favorite people in the world. He was the head of my daughter's Jewish high school here in Boston, and now he's the president of our Jewish Federation. Last week, after you invited me to speak and we came up with the topic, this was part of his Shabbat message. So words have both the power to create and to destroy. They can make order and they can wreak chaos. They can dignify and they can degrade. They can motivate and they can demoralize. They can clarify and they can obfuscate. They can unite and they can divide. So he says, perhaps this year the Torah is asking and challenging us. How can we use our voices, our words, and the power of our speech for good? Because every time we open our mouths, every one of us can participate in this powerful tikkun, repairing of the world. So to answer this woman's question, if you write it and you delete it, okay, so no one else can see it anymore, but maybe you feel better for having written it. So my siblings and I, and we have if we want to write something to somebody and we need clarification, we send it to each other first. So first of all, it feels really good to get it down on paper. This actually comes from Bill Eddy. He's a high conflict guy out of California. And he talks about this acronym. It's called BIF. And so when somebody mudslings at you, right, and sends you this negative message and you need to respond. So my siblings and I will help take out all that negative stuff. So I think we were using Bill Eddy before we knew we were using Bill Eddy. So the idea being that it felt better to write it. So write it, send it to yourself, keep a journal, do something. We have to get our anger out somewhere. But in our response to that negativity, keep it brief, keep it informative, keep it firm, and keep it friendly. Because even if you don't like somebody, you could work with them or wherever you are. Friendly relationships goes back to this quote here, the power of words.
Wow, this is spectacular. We're running out of time. Can you do one more slide for me, please? Just one more. Actually, no. I want to see the video that you brought. I love that video. And you have to come back again, okay? Because we didn't get through like even a quarter of this. I knew it. It's just so special. Okay, let's watch that.
Okay, so this is a video about listening and about good listening, and we didn't even talk about listening. This is not a dig on men at all. This is between a man and a woman, but picture yourself with your child or whatever. So go ahead.
It's just there's all this pressure, and sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it. Like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Come on. If you would just.
Don't.
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can go on?
Okay. So I know we're running out of time.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
I know
gosh,
we're
that
running
was
out of time. 2 words on that. The idea is that everybody really just wants to be heard and listened to. Obviously, she doesn't have a nail in her head. It's a metaphor for anything that's bothering us. Years ago, I was actually getting ready to present this at a conference. I was going to use this in a presentation, and my daughter called me from college, and she was complaining about something, and she was upset about something. I'm a mama bear. I moved into action. Well, did you try this? Did you call the teacher? Did you talk to and she finally said, Mommy, can you shut up and listen to me just like you're always teaching other people to do? And I got told. But now I ask her when she calls with those complaints, I say, do you need advice or do you want me to listen? And she'll tell me which she needs, because sometimes we just want to be heard.
Oh man, yes. Oh, okay. So Jodes, please say that you'll come back and continue this
Sure.
conversation with me. We do have to wrap, and it's a shame because there's so much more. And you've shared so much tremendous expertise. And like I said, we've only scratched the surface. So you're coming back with thanks to the Comins family for raising such a fabulous young woman.
Thank
And this
you.
conversation has been really helpful. And there have been many questions and comments that we, were not able to get to. So to all of you whose questions we couldn't get to, when we invite Jody back, you'll get your next chance at it.